Thailand is going cashless.
Thailand is rapidly moving toward becoming a cashless society, with a recent visa survey predicting a full transition by 2028.
Now, this may sound great on paper, but will this actually work in the real world? I have some questions. So, Thailand plans to be completely cashless by 2028. Thailand is currently third in the region for people carrying less cash, following Vietnam and Malaysia. And the plan is to be completely cash-free by 2028, but I do think they're going to face some real challenges with this. I'll explain. So currently Thailand has the QR code banking system, which in my opinion is a little It's good in that I use it every single day. It's very useful, but it does have its flaws, such as you need to be living here to have a Thai bank account. Not only do you need to be living here, you need to be on a visa. I had to show my work permit and a whole bunch of other paperwork. Getting the actual bank account is quite challenging. There are services that can do it for you, but that is quite costly. Now, like I said, I do use this every single day. This is a must-have tool for living here in Thailand, but not everywhere still accepts the QR code payment. Now, for us, foreigners or tourists, using things like Apple Pay, cardless systems is still quite a challenge. It has gotten considerably better over the last few years, and more places are starting to accept the tap-to-go pay system. Some places are starting to get Apple Pay, or you can use it in more places, but still not everywhere accepts it. And for this cashless rollout to actually work, they're going to need to have that available everywhere, basically. Another issue that kind of rolls on from this is to use your card in a lot of places, there's limits or minimum spends that you need to spend. As an example, 7-Eleven, if you want to use your card to pay, there's a 200 baht minimum, so you can't just walk in and buy a bottle of water just using your card. Now, 7-Eleven has introduced the ScanPay, the QR code payment system, but I don't know if it's available in all stores yet, and I'm not sure how the rollout for that is actually going.
Hello. Can I pay scan? Okay. No scan? Okay.
And again, if you don't have a Thai bank account or you're just visiting here, you're not even going to be able to use this. Now, for me as an expat living here, my preferred banking and payment method is actually a bank from my home country. I have a global account with the bank in Australia, so I pay the correct exchange rate everywhere I go. Also, whenever I put money into my Thai bank account, I have to pay fees. I use TransferWise. There's a few different ways that you can transfer money into that, but being that I get paid into my Australian bank, moving that money into my Thai bank, I lose a little every time. For me personally, and I know not everyone is going to agree with this, I prefer a digital way like Apple Pay or something like that. That means I don't need to carry a wallet with me where I go. Okay, so that is the information out of the way. Now let's talk about how this is going to work, or how this is going to have to work in the real world. Services like this will face real challenges because paying with cash is fast, paying with QR code or card is slow. I think things like the ferries will need to adopt some kind of ticketing system where you need to prepay. There just isn't going to be the time for everyone to scan a QR code or tap or whatever. These ferries get insanely busy, especially in the mornings and the afternoons. Now, while the ticketing thing seems like a really easy solution, my personal belief is a lot of people don't use the trains, particularly the older generation. They don't use the trains because they're intimidated or they struggle with the whole ticketing system. You'll see people getting around in the older trains or in the buses, and they're basically, you pay once you get on, much like this ferry. Now let's talk about what, in my opinion, is going to be the biggest hurdle, and that is the age gap and the economic gap for people living here in Thailand. There are a lot of older people that live here in Thailand that have never owned a smartphone, never done any internet banking. There's a lot of people here that don't even have a bank account. There is also a lot of people that are far less fortunate, people that live in communities like this. And these people rely on cash. Having some kind of banking system or even having a smartphone just isn't realistic for a lot of the people living in places like this. Something to keep in mind is we're talking about all of Thailand here, not just Bangkok. And while Bangkok is mostly developed, there are parts of Thailand, especially in the rural areas, that are really, it's almost like going back in time in some of these places. And I feel like for these areas, it's going to be really hard to adopt this system. A harsh reality of this country is there's a lot of people that live here that aren't registered residents. There's a lot of informal housing and people living in informal situations, and a lot of people that were born here, while they are Thai people, they simply weren't registered at birth. So with these older trains that run through Bangkok, the payment system is much like the ferries. You pay once you get on and you pay cash for that. The cost of these is very low. I've taken them a couple of times, it's just 1 or 2 baht. A lot of the elderly and less fortunate will use these to get around. A lot of younger people do too. People will take this on their way to and from work. And there's an unwritten rule that payment is essentially optional. So like I said, it is very affordable to ride these trains, but for a lot of the less fortunate, you don't really need to pay to take them around.
Thank you.
Right, well, that was really fun and only 2 baht. So next up is how will the whole tipping thing work? So tipping isn't a huge thing here in Thailand. It's not really a tipping culture here. If you do tip, it's usually just like a 20 baht is kind of the standard. Now, for places where you go pay on a QR code, a lot of them say don't tip because they don't actually get that money. Ideally, you're tipping for the staff. But when you pay with the QR code, usually that goes to the business owner or the business account. So those tips don't actually make it back to the staff. And for all you 2-week millionaires that love to come here and throw 20 baht notes on stage, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. So how will the rollout of this cashless system go? Who knows? There's also a plan to put all the wiring in Bangkok underground, and 5 months ago they cut the wires in this street, and I asked the question then, will they actually remove all the unused poles and unused wiring? And well, we'll just have to wait and see.